It gives you your textbooks, references, your online links to information that you need for the class. It was going to tell you all your assignments, what your group projects are, what papers you're going to have to write, and the papers that we ask you to write would be in APA style, which you will be explained what that means if you don't already know. Your tests, your exams, and when all these things are due. And then your grading criteria is not only what we covered earlier, which is, that 90 to 100% is an A, but also that how much is weighted towards your final grade. So in other words, if your final exam is 20% of your final grade, maybe your paper is another 20%, maybe your class participation is 5%. So all of that would be laid out so that you would know, gee, if I decide I'm not going to do that paper, it's going to take 20% off my grade. So you'll have a blueprint to know exactly what you need to succeed. And like I said before, the MEET curriculum checklist of essential competencies is included at the end of your syllabi for each course. So Jenny has a standard of excellence that is why I decided to be part of her program from the very beginning. She preaches over and over that we're responsible for the health and safety of the mother and baby, and therefore that level of accountability, because we practice outside of the hospital settings, we practice in the community in homes and birth centers, that we have to be the best of the best. That we have to accept the responsibility for this level of care. That the actual life of the mother and the baby are in our hands. And so if you demonstrate your responsibility level by coming to class on time, by being prepared, by sharing, participating in class discussions, by completing assignments on time, by taking the initiative to learn what you need to learn or ask for help when you need it, and not wait until things are overwhelmed and you don't know how to handle it, but coming to us for help as soon as you feel that you might need it. These are signs that you have what it takes to be a safe, compassionate, accountable midwife. So that's why we look to you to demonstrate your level of excellence to us. And I know Jenny will echo this one. She'll say how seriously we take all this.
Yes.
So, your assessment is how do we determine that you've learned what you need to know? We determine that by how you participate, the questions you ask, the information that you share, maybe your own experiences or those that you've read about. How thoughtful are you just doing the bare minimum, or are you really putting a lot of thought into your assignments and your group projects? And when you have a group project, are you just slacking off, or are you taking on other work that your fellow classmates should be doing? Because we're all responsible for raising the accountability and the skills and the to make sure that we're all doing our part. The quality of your papers, your grammar, your spelling, your content, and remember that if you're not really confident in your grammar or your spelling, there are a lot of computer programs that you can use in Word or download that can help you with this. Also, some of your instructors would be willing to look at something ahead of time and give you some guidance. And then, of course, your testing, your final exams, your quizzes. And a lot of your exams will be worded in multiple choice because that is what your NARM exam is going to be, exclusively multiple choice. So we want you to be familiar with that kind of testing. It may not be the best way to test, but it's the way that you're going to have to pass to get your license. So academic honesty is really important. If you cheat on an exam, basically you're being academically dishonest. And you might get away with it, is the material that you didn't learn is undoubtedly going to come up when you're a practicing midwife. And so if you cheat on an exam or an assignment, what you're doing is cheating your future clients, as well as putting your academic future with the school at risk. So if you're entitled to use material from others or work collaboratively, that will be explained in class. If not, then you should not take somebody else's ideas and pass them off as your own. If you're using somebody else's ideas or their material, you need to cite the source. And don't double dip. In other words, submit work from one course into another course, unless you get permission of the instructor. And of course, stealing exams or course material is all part of academic honesty. And so in the event that somebody is suspected of cheating or plagiarism or otherwise misrepresenting their work, the student will be subject to a due process. Now, sometimes people can unwittingly plagiarize, clip something out of an article and put it in a paper as their own words. If you do that, you need to set it off as separate from your own words and cite it, the source where you got it from. And in our catalog, we have grievance and disciplinary policy, and all of these policies are spelled out in detail. But just to let you know that if somebody is not is accused of academic dishonesty and found guilty, you could either get a grade of F, which means that you would have to repeat the course, or disciplinary probation. And so the route for academic success takes motivation, effort, and planning. And you have to want to succeed at least as much as we want you to. We cannot take the responsibility for you passing a course, but you need to be willing to do what it takes. And I know that it's hard because we're all adult learners, and so you have adult responsibilities as well as being a student. It's not like you're right out of high school going into college and you don't have to actually run a family and a household and all of that. And in addition to your academics, you also have the challenge of your clinical program. So you're going to have a lot on your plate. It's not an easy road. So basically what we suggest is that when you start a course, you review the syllabus thoroughly and you prepare for the semester, whether you make your own calendar of when things are due and you start taking the whole lay of the land. It's like if you're going on a trip. You don't just plan for the first 50 miles, you plan for the entire trip. So you have to plan for the entire semester. You have to attend all classes, get there early, be ready to learn, have your cup of coffee, have all your reading assignments completed, make sure to ask questions, ask for help, take initiative to you being responsible, to know that you're learning everything that you can. Share so that others can learn from your experience. If each one of you goes to one birth and you all share, then you have the advantage of maybe 14 or 15 other experiences that you can put in your knowledge base. And then ongoing study habits, healthy living habits, and what I like to call homeland security, which is making sure that your laundry's done, your car has gas in it, your bills are paid, your taxes are done ahead of time so that you're not called out to a birth with all of these things left undone, and that's extra pressure and stress on you that if you're well organized, that stress will be off of you. So that's about all I have to say for now, and I'm going to turn this over to Jenny.
Thank you very kindly, Justine. And again, welcome everybody. I'm glad you're on this call. So of course, midwifery, we all have our stars in our eyes. We're all excited. We all are looking forward to that birth experience where we will be the one. And of course, you know, this is exactly why I'm still doing this work 36 years hence. I'm still high. It is like the biggest high. I cannot tell you. Since I was 16 years old, I've been excited about birth. So my part is in the clinical program. I've particularly made an effort to be the one for this piece because I feel like I have a lot of clinical insight and a lot of knowledge that I want to share with my students. I have a hospital background. I trained in a hospital as a direct entry midwife in England when that was a brand new program, so that was 1979. So I had the experience of being not a nurse, but being in a hospital environment for my entire training. The other piece was that we didn't do academic training in a classroom setting. We did it on the ward, on the floor, and that really helped me to begin to develop the necessity of having solid and sound clinical skills, because we were not only learning it as we went, but we were actively practicing. We were delivering, we were doing prenatal and postpartum care from day one, and it really makes a difference when you have hands-on experience in this way. So I've crafted this program to not only include your on-site clinical experiences, where you will be with a preceptor that we've specifically chosen. We are very particular about our preceptors, and we strive to find the preceptors that are going to give you the best, most all-round experience as well. But then the lab classes are particularly important in my school, because I want that when we go through those skills, we have enough time and you have enough room to be able to make your mistakes, find your way, build your confidence while we practice with models, with each other, with hands-on. So keep in mind, this is a very rigorous clinical program as well as a rigorous academic program. We're looking for midwives on the other end of this program who are not what I call the nervous ninny, shaking in their boots, scared to death to go out to a birth on their own. So they really have never strengthened their skills and feel confident. I'm looking for a midwife who from day one is ready to go. Like the family would barely know the difference whether she's done 1 birth, 50 births or 500, because she has it like that. So keep in mind that we follow the guidelines set out by NARM and MEEK, but I also feel like that we have a specific particular leaning towards that skill and adept ability to troubleshoot your way through any potential situation that could present during the course of pregnancy, labor or birth from a hands-on, skill-driven perspective. And critical thinking is absolutely key when we're talking about midwifery and clinical skills. We stay in our lane, we know our scope, and that's part of your learning in clinical work as well. We're not looking to do heroic, crazy things. We're looking to do safe and solid things and recognize when something is not normal or healthy or straightforward so that we can collaborate. So we use the skills book. As you see a little picture here of the pink skills book. This book is a book that is put out by or works in tandem with the North American Registry of Midwives courses, and we expect that by the time you finish your 3 years, through each of those skills courses, those externship and the lab courses, you will have signed off every skill that is in this book, the entire book. And once that's done, then you are now passed on to be able to sit for your NARM exam. So just a sort of a brief outline of the fact that clinical is us. That's who we are, that's what we stand for. And Common Sense is the reason why we named the program Common Sense Childbirth School of Midwifery. We want that our midwives practice from a space of common sense, but they practice with confidence and an ability to hold their own in any given situation at any time in their midwifery life. Kathy, is there a next slide? I think Kathy's gone away. Oh, look, there she is. So the other thing I really... Okay, great. The other thing I really want to stress is the importance of really thinking this through. So let me go back to that oxytocin that I just mentioned. You know, sometimes we get so caught up in our kumbaya and our, you know, touchy-feely happy selves that we aren't really making the best decisions. And as Justine mentioned earlier, you've got to be able to make good, solid decisions to do this work and be a safe provider. So I want to challenge you. I want to first of all thank you for joining this call and for being interested in our school. But I also want to, in a sense, make sure you really got it. Like, are you for real? Like, do you know what you're letting yourself in for? I think the first and foremost thing is to really stop and do a full assessment of your family situation. This work is grueling. It will always be grueling. It will never be a straightforward 9 to 5, oh, I can fit this into a normal life. This is not what you're signing up for. If you intend to practice, you are going to always be at the whim of your patient. That means your phone is going to ring 24/7. It's going to be, you have an encroachment on your privacy that cannot be described. Your life is not your own. Your children will be on the phone wondering where you are. Your husband, your partner will be asking you, when are you coming home? And you will not have an answer. You haven't got an answer for that question. And it will become really old very quickly if you don't think it through now. So I strongly encourage you to speak with your family and also your friends and supporters, because you're going to need a team. This is not something that you can get a little lip service with, okay, I think this is what I'm going to do next. Okay, honey, off you go. No. You really need a sit down, perhaps a meeting, where you pull together a group of people who are going to be ready to step up where you cannot, to be at the graduation ceremony for your teenager, to be at the birthday party, to pick up somebody from daycare. You will have to really put in place and have strong commitments to the other members in your midwifery journey. They now have become midwife students along with you. There's no getting away from that. So even though you may have thought you thought this through already, or you've spoken to some folk already, I just would encourage you, do another one, have another go round, and let's really make sure everybody's clear. When we've had students who've spoken at the orientation, in previous times, they've shared their experience, and invariably they're going to tell you, even with their best thinking, their best preparation, they were still blindsided once they got going. There's a level of exhaustion that there really isn't any adjective that can exactly describe it. And the part of it that's really difficult to grasp is that even through that exhaustion, you put the smile on your face, you grit your teeth, and you act like you're just fine. You act like nothing's going on. So what? You've been here 24 hours. No big deal. All the world rotates around this mother and her baby at this given point of time, and you have no other focus or interest in anything else in your life. This is a big commitment. Okay, so keep in mind as you're making a plan for your future here, that as you get into this work, it doesn't change. It doesn't get better. You could get through this, pass your exam, become licensed, and then be stuck because you can't get to practice because you've got a young family, or you've got teenagers, or something happens with your partner's work, or you have become destitute in pursuing this journey. Keep in mind, all of these peripheral things do have a part to play in your decisions and how you function. If you're going to start, I want you to finish. We're not looking for people to drop off halfway through with, oh, oops, didn't really get it, now I'm sorry. If you're on board, if you're coming on, let's go. We're going all the way to the other end. We want that you are going to be successful, and we want that you're going to still be sane when you're finished. Last thing I would say is, as a mother myself, I started my journey in England, as I've said, and in England we do shifts. Hospitals and regular practices, there's a shared approach to managing the care. So continuity of care is a little different to how we Americans see continuity of care when it comes to midwifery. So I got to this country without any realization that to be a midwife here meant basically putting my life on hold. But unfortunately, my child was only 3 years old when I got started. And so, as a young man, he sat me down once and he told me, Mom, he said, I just want you to know, you were never there. You were never there for me. And I can't tell you how much that hurt. It still hurts to this day. And the reason it was so painful was because he was right. And what's more, I couldn't undo it. I couldn't go back and try it over. To this day, it's something that I've had on my heart, and it's hard for me to manage, even though he's a grown person, and I have a lot of interaction with him now, and we've worked our way through it. But as an only child, I had one opportunity to be there, and in my mind, I blew it. So I'm not suggesting that would happen to you, but I'm just wanting to share that story with you for you to realize that, inadvertently, in our excitement, in our passion, in our commitment to other families, never neglect your own. So we'll take questions as well, so we can talk about that more. I don't want to scare you, but I just wanted to make sure I got my point across.
Okay, this is Cassie. Are you wanting me to talk to you, Jenny?
Oh, yes, please. Oh, you're there. Great. Yes, Cassie. Thank you.
Okay. So, yeah, my name is Cassie. I am graduating in 4 months. I'm so excited. But, yeah, I would have to agree with, a lot of the things that Jenny was saying, and really knowing what it is that you're signing up for. It has to be something that you're, passionate about. If it's just something that you're thinking, I wonder how I would like this. No, that's not it. You've got to love this work in order to be able to do it, and in order to put your family through what you're going to be doing. And I think everyone in your family has to be on board. So even for me, before I started school, I sat down. I have 4 teenagers now, and I sat down with all of them, and I said, okay, this is what I'm looking at. What do you guys think? And here's how it's going to affect all of you. And I had to have all of them on board, and all of them willing to go through it with me before I was, able to say, yes, I'm going to do this. Because me pursuing my passion is really taxing on all of them. So it was something that everyone had to be in it together. Fortunately for me, I have a very supportive husband and 4 teenagers that are very supportive. I have my parents around the corner that are supportive, my sister. So anytime that I do have to drop and run and go to a birth or whatever is going on, I have lots of people that I can call and that I know will support me. And I think, to me, that's one of the key points. If you are not well supported, if you're going into this and your family thinks you're crazy, or if you're going into this and they think, I don't want you to do this, you're in for a really rough 3 years. Having the support is really necessary. The other thing that I would say is that if you come, that your people are going to be your classmates. For me, I absolutely love my classmates. Can't imagine having anybody else. And they're the people that understand what I'm going through. So I can come home from a really hard birth and talk to my husband, and he will, support me the best he can, but he doesn't really get it. But my classmates get it. And so we lean on each other, we share our stories with each other, we cry with each other, we hug each other. There is nobody else that's going to quite understand what you're going through besides them. So you kind of have to build this camaraderie with these people that you kind of go through the sweat and tears with for 3 years. So I would really encourage you, if you do join, to start that off right off the bat. Start off just looking for ways to connect with your classmates. Depending on what preceptor you have or where you're doing your clinicals, even that, it can be challenging. So I've had 2 different preceptors, and one I adore, the one I'm with now, I would love to practice with when I graduate. But the preceptor that I had before that, it was really hard, and our personalities didn't completely jive, and there was, some really hard things that I had to walk through that. So it's not just the hours or the schoolwork that is so hard. It's also actually doing the work can be really challenging, and working through the relationships with your coworkers can be really challenging. So just overall, I just can't stress enough, if you are not so passionate about this, it's not for you. You don't want to come in here half-hearted. And I love that Jenny, says that over and over, because one of my classmates now, she came to the class 3 years before that and listened to this orientation and said, nope, it's not for me yet. And then she started this class, and now she's graduating because she needed to wait until it was good for her family and good timing for her. And she appreciated so much that Jenny was really honest about what it is. Because we don't want you coming in with rose-colored glasses and thinking that it's just going to be oxytocin and babies and mommies, and it's really, really hard work. But it's the best work. I love it. So I think that's about all I have to say about that.
I just wanted to jump in here and add a couple of things from my own experience as both a teacher and a student. And before working with Jenny, I ran the midwifery program at Miami-Dade Community College. What I'd like to say is that if you sign on to become a midwife, the process that you experience, it kind of puts you through challenges and helps you to overcome or to deal with any psychosocial issues that you might bring to the fore. It kind of touches us in ways that are beyond an academic or clinical classroom. It challenges us in ways to become responsible, in ways to be able to learn how to set limits and prioritize in our lives. If we have a tendency to become codependent and feel responsible for the outcomes, it challenges us to deal with things like that. And by that, what I mean is that we have to know that birth is romantic and exciting and beautiful, and it's a miracle, but it doesn't always go well. There can be a lot of profound sadness involved in walking this journey with a woman. And we have to realize that we don't control life or death. Our responsibility is to be the best that we can be and give the level of care that is as excellent as anybody else could give. But we can't guarantee that this pregnancy is going to turn into a healthy, happy baby at the end of it. And we have to know our limitations, and we have to be able to cope with any kinds of challenges or difficulties or scary births that might come up. Those of you who've done doula work, you know the challenges of being on call 24/7. But we also have to know that we have to be able to handle the rough times as well as the good times. And everybody comes to the point in their midwifery experience where they come across something that rocks them profoundly. And at that time, you have to reach out for help. You have to turn to your classmates, turn to your instructors, turn to Jenny, reach out to us, and let us help you through it. Because we, like policemen and fire rescue workers and military, we go out into harm's way and we help people at a very important, pivotal, crucial point in their lives. And that can take its toll. And so we have to have the emotional resilience and wisdom to go through that and to reach out for help and know that we have to be the best we can be, but none of us is going to be perfect. So, for instance, like Cassie mentioned, that she had a bad preceptor-student fit on one site. And I know as a midwifery program director, one student could be perfect with a preceptor, and another student wouldn't do very well with that same preceptor, and that student might shine with a different preceptor. And so these are all clinical considerations that we would be walking through. And I hope that this information session has helped you to really, like Jenny said, take a deep, serious, deep dive into what you're signing up for the next 3 years. And so that's all I have to share.
Thank you.
Jenny, I think you're muted.
I am. Hopefully now you can hear me. Yes, thank you. I think that sums it up very well. Kathy, shall we go to questions and answers? There's a question in the chat.
I can't see the chat, so if you
can
read it.
Okay, so I'm going to read the question from Lakendra. Thank you. Do graduates receive a certificate or a degree? So Justine, do you want to answer that one?
Yes, we are a certificate program. We are not a degree granting program. There are some midwifery schools who grant degrees through their State Department of Education. That is really not the same as a degree that you would get from a community college or a university. Academically, it does not have the same kind of weight or transferability. So that's why we have decided on the certificate model, because it is the appropriate model for the kind of program that we are.
So to ask your questions, you need to unmute yourself if you are going to speak. I think, is there a raise your hand thing, Kathy, or is it just jump right in?
Is there an age or credits cut off? Kendra, I don't know what you mean by that. Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, great. Thank you. Basically, I'm a surgical technologist. I've been so for 18 years, and I've taken many multiple number of medical courses. But some of my credits clearly may be too old. Is there a cutoff for your math and science as far as how old the credits are for the 3 that you require?
I don't believe there's a cutoff for math and science. Probably we would have a cutoff for anatomy and physiology because that changes so much. But Jenny, aren't we entitled to take math and English credits from community colleges? Is there any cutoff on that?
I don't believe those credits, no. And I agree with you that there may be some, we may have to, put something in place if it's not already there for certain of the courses that may have been updated, over a course of time. So we may need to individualize that answer for you, Lakendra. And Justine would be able to look at the credits and give you better feedback directly.
Okay.
Here's a question: is the entire tuition collected at the beginning, or are there payment plans?
This is Kathy. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
The tuition, your full tuition is expected at the beginning of each semester. However, with certain cases, we do allow payment plans. There is sometimes is a added fee to elongate your plan, but the expectation is at the beginning of each semester, your tuition is paid in full.
How many hours a day do you find students are in class versus, I guess, say Google Classroom? I guess that's online.
This is Kendra. Can you hear me?
Yes?
Yes. I can answer that one. So basically, we have every single Friday is live class time. So that's usually about 6 hours of live class time every Friday. And then, like any other, post-high school program, for every 1 hour in class, you should plan to spend between 2 and 4 out of class studying, reading, doing assignments, etc. But really, the only class time then would be 6 hours every Friday. So your own homework assignments, the time that you spend doing that might be, spotted throughout the week, however you can manage it. And that would also then depend on your clinical placement. Some students, would maybe have a day and a half of clinicals every week. Others might be more expected to do 3 to 4 days of clinical. Some students at their receptor site were expected to be on call almost 24/7, whereas others had specific call days. That really depends on the site. A smaller home birth midwife practice might expect you to be on call more often because there will be less births, but a busier birth center might, give you specific call days. Does that answer your question?
Okay. It does. Thank you.
So do students typically have one or multiple clinical sites during their team of school?
Yes, I'll answer that one. So it all depends on your location. It depends on where you are. It depends on where our preceptors are sited in relation to where you are. And it depends on the volume of the preceptor site and whether or not you're getting, your birth experiences, your clinic experiences, and a timely fashion. We try to move everybody through so that nobody's lagging or not getting what they need. So it'll unfold as it unfolds and as we get rolling. So usually if we find you a good match and it works out, you may stay there, but I like for you to have some variety, because then that way you can see different preceptors. Every one of us practices differently. So the answer really is most likely you'll have maybe 1 or 2 throughout the entire 3-year time. There was a question here from Stevie about registered nurses receiving advanced standing, and I'll address that one real quick too. That one, there is a program in the state for registered nurses, which is a 2-year midwifery program, but unfortunately we only offer the 3-year midwifery program and the 4-month program for foreign trained midwives or physicians. So there's actually a program that exists, which is a 2-year midwifery track, and we just don't have it at our school. I think if you do some research, you may find it is at the Florida School of Traditional Midwifery. They may have it there, but there is actually a program. It's 2 years for registered nurses.
Right, and then Kendra did type in that we may be able to transfer certain courses in. So whereas your program might not be shortened, there might be some courses that you would be able to receive credit for from previous, depending on how long ago you had taken them, the grade that you got, where you learned them, etc. And we would do an individual transcript evaluation. So that might ease your load a little bit if there was one class a semester that you didn't need to take.
Right.
And then what kind of class start on Friday is 9 a.m. is the way we've been starting class, usually. So if your class is on campus, you would need to build in your commuting time. If we're doing a class by, on computer, then you would just have to get out of bed, get your coffee, and fire up your computer.
That suggests that they might actually be in bed, Justine. You might want to
get out of the hallway.
Right, step out of the birth room. Yeah.
When do classes start? There is a schedule that you will see in the course catalog, and is Jenny Joseph one? Is that you, Kendra?
Yes.
Kendra has answered that. So yes, we do have a 1-week break during each semester, and then we have a break over the summer of about a month, 6 weeks.
Okay. Oh, for Heather, absolutely not. That's perfect. I worry about you when you're far away. If you live in Jacksonville as well, that may put a little strain on you between coming in and out for classes. But we have had students that have made long journeys to get to us. And of course, Fridays are the only day that you'd be expected to be doing that for your classroom time. On very small, very few occasions, we may do a workshop, which might be a weekend, 8-hour or 2 8-hour sessions to cover a class. Sometimes those are the skills classes, because hands-on workshops sometimes are better done in that format. But the majority of the time that we'll have plenty of advance warning, and everyone will need to agree that they can attend on those days instead of on a Friday. But that's not that common. Okay, family in Winter Garden.
Sometimes it works out well for students who have to travel a bit from their clinical site, because their clinical site knows that, for instance, if you're required to be on campus Friday morning, that you would be off call maybe Thursday at 2 until you got back into town, say, Saturday at 2. And so your clinical site would then have to schedule you to be off on that block of time that you would be required to do any commuting and to be in class.
So for Delisha, we will be offering continuing education, not specifically from the midwifery program, but we have a menu of perinatal programs, courses, and continuing education that we are in the process of adding to and developing more. So that will definitely be available, and you'll get information about that as we get things up and rolling. So stand by for that information. The state required continuing education for midwives, that's covered in your training throughout your 3-year program. Once you're licensed as a midwife, you have to keep up continuing education every 2 years for each renewal of your license. That biennium, you need to get 21 continuing education credits done. And so those are easily found in other sources, but currently we aren't having our students, our Common Sense Childbirth School of Midwifery students, doing continuing education per se, so we're not offering that in that way for the midwifery courses.
Yeah, the professional association, the Midwives Association of Florida, puts on a conference every 2 years where you can do one-stop shopping. It's usually in the summer before license renewal is due, and you can get all your required courses at that 3-day conference.
Yep. Lakendra.
And this is a good one about keeping a regular
Yes.
job. Jenny, you want to
Well,
do that one?
I mean, it's sad because it would make so much sense, you know, if you could keep a job and do all of this as well. It has never worked out. I have not yet met a student who could manage. And it's very frustrating because, you know, even a little part-time would be helpful. But the strain of it and the angst of it all is just beyond manageable. There's no such job that will have you be, oh, oopsie, I'm running out and I don't know when I'm going to be back. That's not a job that you're likely to keep very long anyway. So I love the word regular. So the answer is no. I don't think so. I wish, but no. Nothing regular about this career path. No, nothing.
How many classes are in each semester? That varies depending on the length of the classes. And you can tell that from looking in the course catalog. So in other words, if you have a few short classes, you might have more actual different classes in each semester. And I think that the point that Jenny made is really important about not being able to keep a regular job. You don't want to have to be in the middle of your program that you're deeply in love with and run out of ways to pay for it. So that's one thing to really think about ahead of time, is how you would be able to afford your 3-year midwifery program. And unfortunately, at this point, we don't have any ability to offer any financial aid or scholarships. The catalog is, how do they get a copy of the catalog?
So when we enroll, you then that's when we usually will share the full catalog, but we can certainly share the outline of the classes and the the tentative schedule, and so there'll be that kind of information readily available for you, and we can certainly provide that for you on request. Oh, Kendra said yes, right there. What Kendra said.
And another thing that I wanted to share is that if you love maternal and child health and you don't feel that you are cut out for the responsibility of midwifery, there are other opportunities that you can pursue, either through the school or otherwise, which is like being a doula, being a lactation consultant, being a childbirth educator, where you can participate in maternal and child health without the responsibility of midwifery. So that's something else to consider. Is this something that you really feel that you're ready to accept? Jenny, you see that question from Stevie?
Are you guys able to? Can you guys hear me? This
Yes.
is Kathy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
In response to Stevie's question, we have to. I'm part of that process that looks at those courses. So if you have an outline, a possible syllabus, I will look at those and then determine whether you have to retake to that or if that will qualify for the certification.
It also depends on if you took a childbirth education course 7 years ago and then never did anything with it, versus have you been teaching childbirth courses since then.
Yeah.
So your ongoing experience as well as your initial training. Are we ready to go to the last slide here? I'll just put it up there for when we're ready. Any more questions, comments? Do you have any questions for Cassie about being a student? Anything else that we can help you with? Stevie, I think the short answer is that we would need to look individually at what your course syllabus was, what you were taught, how far you got in the program, and whether or not you have been actually applying what you learned since then. So in other words, if you've been teaching childbirth education courses since you took the program. So it's really an individual question for each one of you. We don't want to make you take anything that you've already taken. We don't want to waste your time sitting through something that you already know, but we want to make sure that you have achieved a level of excellence and are prepared to offer to the community based upon best practices. I hope that answered your question.
And this is Kendra, and I can address Kendra's question here about testing out. We've definitely talked about that before, basically to clip out of a course. However, I just want to let you know, and we'll talk about it, we can talk about it individually with you based on your experience and based on your education. If you have a specific grade for a course, such as microbiology, and it covers, all of the same objectives that our course does, then yes, usually we would take that. But I do just want to warn you, even those who have healthcare experience or healthcare education, most of our courses are so specific to midwifery that rarely do you have an equivalent course unless you're coming from a different midwifery school. So again, things like anatomy and physiology, the basic one, microbiology, those things might be able to transfer credit, but we find usually students end up taking a bulk of our courses because of how specific they are to midwifery.
Yep.
This is Cassie. Can I just say one more thing about that?
Sure.
The other thing I would say regarding that is we had a couple of people that, ended up, there was a couple of classes they were able to get out of, but they ended up actually feeling like they missed out because, again, when I talk about that camaraderie and with your classmates, if you're only taking, half the classes, you're missing out on a lot of even classroom discussion and sharing stories of births and it's not, I mean, you are getting the material from your class, but you're also, every class that you have with your classmates is a bonding experience. And so even if you already have some of that knowledge, there was a couple classes I probably could have not taken, but I chose to because I wanted to be part of that with my classmates. It was a growing experience every time.
This is Jenny.
I remember you saying that like a basic psychology course didn't begin to cover all of the issues that you needed to study in midwifery.
I think
right, exactly.
I also think it's important that, you know, we stress we do keep our school very tight. So, you know, we take a small cohort. We're not trying to pack a class. We're not trying to run people through every year. We're not trying to just hope for the best and swing by and, you know, touch on this and touch on that. It is purposeful in the way we try to build on the program. So not just from the course academics, but also from the connections and relationships. And the model that I work, regardless of whether it's with my own patients in my clinic or my own patients in the birth center, it's the same across the board, which is that there are these underlying cornerstones, and that those four things are, for me, are access, connections, knowledge, and empowerment. And having access to each other, having access to the faculty, having access to your school, it builds a connection that will become really instrumental in your development as a midwife, and for how your practice will run when you do have your own, or whether you're employed in a practice, understanding the dynamic of how this work gets done in community. So, you know, missing out is really literally what it sounds like. You are missing out, even though you may save some money or you may save time in terms of having to do more homework. The fact is that once you are connected well, the learning is so much simpler, easier, and more assimilated, and you're empowered in that knowledge. You have a different sense about the knowledge, especially these drier topics, if you will. I'm sure those who have done microbiology before are not sort of still juiced up about microbiology. I could be wrong. So, you know, when you look at it from that aspect, it sometimes makes better sense to just reapply your thought thinking, even past knowledge, to the new discipline, which new for you discipline, which is midwifery, as well as building those strong relationships as you go through, because those 3 years just fly by, right, Cassie?
Yes, they do. They fly by and stand still at the same time. That's what I feel like.
Right.
Yep.
You know, when you graduate and practice midwifery, there are times when you have maybe two clients in labor at the same time, or you have a really sticky situation, or you feel like you're in over your head. And that's when the relationships that you've built with your fellow classmates over the 3 years in school become your midwifery community that you can rely on for backup, for consultation, for peer review, for all of the things. So you're not doing this alone. You start community building from day one in school.
Very true. And just
we offer job placement assistance post-program completion. What I've seen often is that the preceptors, when they work with you and they see the quality of work that they do, will often ask you to be an employee afterwards.
Yeah, I think, and also there's something to be said, without, you know, getting too much of my bragging head in, but the fact that you came through and graduate from Common Sense Childbirth School of Midwifery also stands you in good stead for being hired. Like, it seems to have some weight that you've come through a program that is this rigorous and robust, and you know, midwives that are looking to hire are more inclined to look for students who have solid training and they can depend on their experiences as a student and their, you know, their knowledge base and their clinical skills. So I know I'm saying it myself, so, you know, it may not be so, but I believe it to be part of what we've seen as, you know, we've graduated our classes. All of our graduates are out there working, employed or self-employed. Fruitful Vine, God bless Sharon. Sharon and I go back since the 90s when I first had a school in 95 back in Oviedo, and all of the women that graduated from that school that stayed in the area are running birth centers or very strong practices, Sharon being one of them from way back in the day. So I think there's some credence to this. You know, we may not necessarily be able to specifically place you in a job, but we do our best to position you for being eligible for work in the midwifery field.
You know, I just want to say that if you don't know Jenny, Jenny has a national and international presence in the midwifery world. She is a sought-after speaker. She is a star of films. She has she has done all kinds of research proving the efficacy of her model and how it can reduce morbidity and mortality and improve pregnancy outcome in vulnerable populations. She is so respected around the world that graduating from her school has a certain seal of approval beyond the modest bragging that Jenny was doing.
Thank you, Justine. Bless you.
You, Jenny,
I'm all like, yeah. Thank you, though. I appreciate that. And it's because of the support of you guys that have helped me get there. That's how we can keep rolling. And, you know, we've really tried to, you know, put in place a team that has your best interest at heart as students. We strive for excellence and we want that you are successful. This is something we are committed to because we know the importance of midwifery in this world and what midwifery can do for this world. So I'm excited that you're interested and looking forward to your applications coming if you feel like after much careful thought and consideration, you still want to apply.
Yes, LaKendra, some classes are held in the Dillard Street building location and some are held by distance. And as far as the expected average salary, that depends upon whether you're an employee, if you are, and how that would be set up in your individual employment situation, or if you were to open up your own practice, you would also, we cover a bit about billing and coding, and you would learn a lot on your clinical site about how you would support yourself in a practice by becoming credentialed by insurance companies and billing them for your services.
In Florida, we are able to bill Medicaid, just so you know. And so, for example, in billing Medicaid prenatal visits, postpartum visits, it's about $50 per visit reimbursement, and for births, it's around $600, $800 for a delivery, and maybe some extra for supplies for the birth and some peripheral charges. So it's not wonderful as far as Medicaid, but some of the insurance contracts that you may be able to get could be reasonable, anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000 for an entire pregnancy experience. So it's a little bit being an entrepreneur. You have to fight for your building your own business, but it's possible. And you know, as far as employment situations, most birth centers that do employ, they are generally struggling. Birth centers don't do very well. They're not making a whole bunch of money. So it varies according to your experience and the prevailing, numbers of births being done, etc. But it's not like a registered nurse where you will come out of school and be into your, high $35 an hour job. It's not that job. It's not that at all. So just keep that in mind.
There's a question here, when will admission decisions be made?
This is Kendra. I can answer that. And
it's a little bit different, for everybody. It kind of depends on when all of your application is in. So we do need the full completed application in before it can be reviewed, at which point we will schedule interviews. And most likely you will have 2 interviews with various staff members on our team. And so then basically acceptances are ongoing. So we will, the sooner you get your application in, the sooner we can do the interviews, the sooner we can say whether or not you would be accepted to the program. So they won't be made all at once because we're not expecting 50 people to apply. If that happens, then maybe we will have to go back and rethink things. But for the most part, the sooner you get your step in, the sooner we'll be able to, work with you in deciding whether or not this is going to be a good fit.
LaKendra lives 1 block away from the building.
All right. Perfect.
Jenny, you're muted.
Oh, you knew. Yes, I'm just saying perfect. Hey, you can roll out of your bed and into the birth room. Perfect.
What is your max student enrollment?
That's something we've definitely gone back and forth in. I think, Jenny, don't we usually say about 12?
Yeah, 12 is really, as much as I would want to go to. We will run a course if we have less than that, but we're not sure. There's a lot of interest this time round, but on average, I've enrolled between 6 and 8 students, but we could manage 12 at this point. So that would be as much as we want to go to. I wouldn't go past that. And we only enroll every 3 years, just so you're knowing. So there won't be an open enrollment for next year. This course, once it starts, runs through for the full 3 years before we take another cohort.
To answer your question about quantifiable value to a NEEC accredited program, Florida is requiring that all educational programs be NEEC accredited, and we are in the process of working towards accreditation. It's a long, slow process. So
yes.
I can't tell you when we would be finished with that. But once a program is NEEC accredited, it is able to, if it wants to, offer financial aid. And so that might be one of the requirements that you would be, if you were interested in a NEEC accredited program, would be, is it a program that offers financial aid? And that might make it more affordable for you to be able to do some sort of financial aid program. I would say that by the time you were to graduate this program, that we would be NEEC accredited, and so you would have the any requirements that might, for instance, if graduation from a NEEC accredited program was required for a licensure in another state, that you would be able to meet that requirement. Other than that, I think that generally an accredited program is a good sign of quality, although not always. But I would stack our program up against any NEEC accredited program. Our program at Miami-Dade Community College was NEEC accredited, and I consider this program to be at least as rigorous, if not more so. So I think financial aid would be the major thing, Heather, that might be a benefit of a NEEC accredited program. I also want to say that I think that we have an environment here in CCSM that is very supportive and student-oriented. And I think that's also to have support and assistance through your 2 years of training, I think is a very to have transferred from FSTM? I'm gonna answer that quickly and then let other people have a crack at that. But I think that it really makes a lot more sense to make a decision and stick with it. Because if you transfer from one school to another, it often makes it difficult in terms of transferring courses. For instance, I do the transcript articulations, talking about how you transfer from one course to another. And I know that the courses at FSTM, like one course at FSTM might cover 2 courses of ours, or one course of ours might be taught in 2 courses of FSTM, because our curriculums are very different. At the end, you come out with the information you need, but it's taught in a different format. And so if you're moving between schools in the middle of your program, you can lose some and have to retake certain things. Or it's just, I think, easier to actually begin and end the same program. It's more efficient in terms of time and money.
I've just put in there that there's one student that has transferred from them into our class, and one student that has transferred from our class to them, and that's only ever happened one time in this both happened in this last cohort of students. We've never had that before. Oh, I say that, maybe back in we had a class in 2010. I think someone did come in from there, not necessarily finish, but yeah. she came in and she didn't stay. Yeah. So maybe 2 from and 1 of ours to over the course since 2010.
If you're interested in the environment, the learning environment, and the student support, and those kinds of things, my suggestion would be to talk to students from both programs, people who graduated from both programs, and get a sense from them how you would compare the 2 programs. Because, one student may have had a really bad experience in one program or another because, just like you can have student A fits perfectly with preceptor C and student B has a terrible experience with preceptor C, and they're both good students, it just wasn't the right fit for them. So, when a student tells us what difficulty they had, it's really a confidential thing that might not generalize to anybody else. Do we accept student loan payment programs? What? Oh, you mean like setting up a payment plan? What, Kendra, is that what you're talking about? I think that Kathy already addressed that, right?
Kathy, are you there?
Yeah, I had to come off of mute. Yes, I'm not sure what you mean if we accept student loan payment programs. We do payment programs, but if you have at current, right now, we don't accept any outside sources, if that makes sense. Also, you paid by graduation, yes.
Sometimes it's possible for students to arrange individual loan programs through a bank or through, sometimes a church will sponsor a student, or, sometimes students are able to find assistance on their own. We, unfortunately, at this point are not in a position to be able to offer as much as we would want to.
So I think we should wrap up, but those individual questions that pop up after we conclude can be sent to via email, and we can continue to answer anything else that comes to mind. Is there any?
Yeah, Jenny, I'll go through this final slide. Just as a concluding remark, you did actually just receive another email from the admissions email that includes some more information. It has a document in it that contains the course outline, just more information about the mission, the purpose, the courses that we offer, tuition, all of that is in that document for you. Additionally, there's also a link there that you would click on if you want to ask for an application. So that would be the fill out the request an application form. So that was sent directly in that email as well. So at that point, then we would send you the link to the application form, as well as an email that contains some of the forms that you need. For example, like the healthcare experience form or the education experience form that you would then fill out and upload into your online application. Yes, and like we said earlier, too, to take note of the application requirement and be ready to upload all your files, to have them all ready to go before you start. And then if you have incoming transcripts that you would like evaluations for, if you have, that doesn't count to the math and English or health education and things, that we will do, on its own time. But if you have previous credits that you're trying to transfer into this 3-year program, such as anatomy and physiology, such as microbiology, anything like that, then you would request a transcript evaluation, and that's a $45 fee. Then Justine would be going through the transcripts to outline which courses then you might be able to basically test out of and not have to take with us.
And what I would need for that, sorry Kendra, what I would need for a transcript evaluation would be a course catalog from the institution when you took the course and a course syllabus. And of course your transcript with the grade that you took, that you got. But I would need to compare content and number of hours to, and the rule of thumb for articulation is that it has to be at least 80% of a match. And this is based upon acceptable post-secondary education processes.
Yes, and so if you do decide to do that, you would let us know and we can give you those steps, step by step as well, if that applies to you. But in the meantime, any questions or, further thoughts that you have, you would send to this email, this admissions@commonsensesuitablepre.org, and that's who will be handling your questions, your applications, forms that you have, and further thoughts that you have regarding the program. And if that's all, I got kicked out of the program again, so I can't see if there's any other concluding remarks.
Do we offer school tours? Kendra, who lives 1 block away, is asking if she can tour.
Yes, we probably could hook you up, Kendra. Just get in touch via the email, and yeah, we can sort that out. There's, the classroom is inside of the birth center. It's literally a birth center unless there's students on board on a Friday. So it's set up as a birth center because it's a functional birth center. But, still happy to see and accommodate you for that if you'd like that. Okay. All right then. I think we're good. Thanks everybody for attending.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
The conference has finished. Thank you for using Click Meeting. Goodbye.